Welcome to Construction Genius. My guest today is Neil Rogers, and Neil is the VP of Rogers Marketing with 40 plus years of experience in sales and marketing. And so today we're going to be talking about sales. Neil has zero experience in construction sales, and that's completely okay because there are fundamental aspects of being a successful salesperson that translate in all industries. And today you're going to learn some of those insights. It begins with your inner game, how you prepare yourself mentally for sales situations, then translates into your sales process, and clearly understanding what that process is from the first point of contact all the way through to making the sale. It includes understanding why people buy and what they're looking for when they buy your services. And we dive into the importance of being extremely disciplined in the way that you sell, with an emphasis on a 7-touch process that can get people into the place where they know you, they trust you, and they like you. And that's who people buy from, people who they know, trust, and like. Let's dive right into this conversation with Neil. I know you're going to enjoy it. Thanks for listening to Construction Genius today. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Neil, welcome to Construction Genius.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for having me. This is great.
I want to dive right in. You're an expert when it comes to sales, and if you can't sell something, you can't build a project. So what sets apart a high-performing salesperson from someone who's just merely ordinary?
Well, the good Lord gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should use them in that proportion. You do a lot more listening than you do talking. And as interpersonal people, we struggle with that. So it has to become a discipline. Sit back and listen.
Okay, so that's vital here. I know I struggle with listening. What are some key frameworks or ways of thinking that I can bring into a conversation that will help me to be a better listener?
Okay, so let's set up the framework. I'm not big into sales techniques, but there was one thing in a little study I did at Sandler Sales. There was a thing called the upfront contract. It's also it's used in the insurance business, the scope of the appointment. So set the expectations with your prospect, your client, whoever that may be, and be very courteous and kind to them, because ask them a few questions. The first is, hey, Eric, how much time do we have today? 15 minutes, half hour? Great. So in that time, I'd like to tell you a little bit about us and how we might be able to benefit you, but I want to hear a lot about you and what's going on in your world. What are your pain points? What are the things that maybe keep you up at night as it relates to your business? And then when we're done with that, I think we'll have an idea of whether or not moving forward is a good idea. Does that sound okay to you? Who says no to that?
Right.
And so you're reminding yourself, take a step back. This is not about you. It is about them. Dale Carnegie said it best, right? Everybody wants to talk about themselves. Let them do it. Let them go. Now, you may want to rein them in if you do have a hard stop at a half hour or 15 minutes, depending upon how long the meeting is going to go for, is scheduled to go for. But the good news is, if you let them go, they may run over, and that's okay. Let them go. And oh, by the way, write it down. Take notes.
Taking notes then helps as far as listening?
Listening and keeping your mouth shut. One of my favorite managers, and he's a friend too, he had the greatest lines. Never avoid an opportunity to keep your mouth shut.
Yes, excellent. I'd like to go back to setting the expectations. One of the struggles that I think a lot of people have in sales is they spend a lot of time playing other people's games instead of clearly defining the sales game that they want to play and then inviting people into that process. Do you kind of understand how I'm framing that?
Yes, I do. I am very process driven.
Okay. So what is the importance of having a clear sales process? And then the follow-up question, how can I begin to define what my sales process should be?
Well, the importance of the process is almost like the framing of the appointment, right? You have to have some script or well process, or in today's parlance, an
Yeah,
algorithm,
no, that's
right?
good. Yep.
Right. So we're moving, but you go along systematically, taking through, not robotically,
No.
right? That's where practice comes in. That's where, getting your chops in dealing with people, talking to people, working with your wife, your brother, your cousin, whatever that may be, and getting your rap down. So, but don't get so robotic that it's like, okay, here comes a salesman.
Yeah, that's interesting, huh? The balance between being disciplined and knowing where you are in the sales process with keeping things free flowing.
Correct. And then the second part of that question was again, Eric,
How do I go about defining my process?
well, I mean that we use so in our world we use this positive activity process that I spoke of off air, and that is we set up our day in a positive manner. I think the best way is to rewind for a moment. The best way is to tell your audience what we do, and then what I always say. This is not an absolute, but here's my thoughts. Here's what works for us for the last 37 years and all the accolades, the awards, and the commissions and all that. Maybe it'll work for you. So in positive activity, we make sure what we say is it's the practice. And we say practice because we're yoga people
Mm-hmm.
and
No, it's good.
nothing's a perfect,
Yeah.
right? Let's not, nobody bats 1,000. So it's the practice of getting your mindset right and clearing your day,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what are your steps to clearing your mind and getting yourself in the right place? We'll talk about that. But once you're there, you're now in a place of open-minded, divergent thinking, solution providing, creativity, right? You don't see issues anymore. You only see solutions because your mind is right.
Mm-hmm.
You're not in a lather over, whatever happened yesterday and you woke up and you opened up your email and there it is again today. And I say this, everybody, is because I'm a victim of this and I've done it to myself. So I over time, I've moved away from that doing that. So the day may start, and here's a little tip to your audience, another great book to try. I am selling bar tips, but it's called The Happiness Advantage.
Mm-hmm.
The Happiness Advantage is written by a man by the name of Sean Acor. And Sean studied happiness at Harvard for 12 years and discovered, and this is through his research and Martin Seligman, all these other people that have studied happiness, you control 90% of your own happiness. 10% is your car, your house, how much money you make. The rest of it, you control. So let's work with that. So what's the steps to do to get in a place of positivity, so you can then be in creative mode.
So give us some of those
Here's
steps.
what we do.
Yeah, give us some of those steps.
Yeah. So what we do is we meditate
Mm-hmm.
every morning. It sounds kind of spooky. I'm a transcendental meditation, and it's hard to believe that a seventh of eight of an Irish Catholic family is at the TM, but I am.
Sure.
So I do 20 minutes in the morning.
Uh-huh.
We have a gratitude practice. So this is not new stuff.
Right.
Everybody, there's a lot of the stuff is out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're writing down the things that we're grateful for. So that shifts your mind to positive place.
Mm-hmm.
We do random reach outs.
Hmm.
Did these a lot during COVID. You think of an old friend, comment on social media in the appropriate way.
Mm-hmm.
Say happy birthday to everybody that comes up on your feed. And if you've got their cell phone, send them a text.
Yep.
I just had a birthday yesterday. And I did not get disappointed with anybody's text and social media posts and all that.
That's nice.
It was just a great day. And it was significant too, Eric. I used Medicare the other day.
Yeah.
So it's not the birthday wasn't casual. And so we also, we believe in random acts of kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And a random act of kindness could be that reach out.
Yes.
I mean, I just texted a buddy of mine that I know is in the hospital. He's having yet another surgery. He's been going through this for 3 years. I feel good doing it. He feels good getting it. It's a symbiotic gig. So now you're there. So those are the types of things that you go for a walk. You got to move your body. Get out in the sunshine. Listen to a little music. Put some background music. Right now, we are always having the classical station on in the kitchen.
Yeah.
it's not jumping around. We're not looking for a party. We're just looking to have some background music, right? So those are the steps that we do here. And my wife is an expert at it. I mean, she is as disciplined as you get. So, and now you're in that place. Now you're ready to do your productivity part because you've got your mind right. You're creative.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your steps going to be today in terms of what's your daily activities?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's your business development activities today? What's your, what are your accounting? What are your employee activities you got to do? So those are the things. So now you go through those steps. In positive activity, the ones that we outline there are business development steps that we've been successful using for the last 37 years, plus or minus. I'm also using the same program in my music. So it works in a lot of ways.
Okay, so let's talk about that business development then. What are some of the steps in your experience? Just give us those crucial steps that if you're going to be successful in business development, you have to be disciplined and consistent. You begin with this inner game, which I think is tremendous, because if you don't have your inner game right, your outer game is going to suck as well. But what are some of those outer game practices that I need to bring to the table in terms of business development?
Well, first of all, for the love of Mike, make sure the person you're pursuing can buy what you sell.
Why is that important?
Because so many salespeople spin their wheels chasing what they believe to be their avatar when they can't even buy what they're selling. You know, they're not compatible, or for a number of reasons. Maybe they just can't buy it. Maybe they're completely locked up. Maybe they're whatever that may be. But at least get that in line so you know who you should be pursuing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Let me just say something to that. This is what you just said, Neil, is fundamental. I was working with a general contractor many years ago. They're bidding on a $70 million project. They've worked many hours to put together their proposal. And I ask the guys, I say, hey, who's the final decision maker on this contract? And they looked at us and looked at me and said, well, I don't know.
Right, yeah. Well, yeah. So now you're just shooting it. Now you're hoping against hope.
Yes.
And who is that person? You know, let's at least direct it to. Let's get it in the same zip code anyways, right?
Yep.
So that's number one.
Yes.
Number two, who are these people then?
Hmm.
You know, I mean, yes, you're going to have to take a silly, wild guess at some of this stuff. I mean, you're not going to bat 1,000.
Sure.
But again, that's why we call it a practice, right? We called it a practice earlier.
Yep.
You know, so you'll get better at as you go. You'll recognize who can buy what you sell, who can't.
Yep.
And then you should start listing them.
Yes.
Simply.
Yes.
Just, right? And we'll get to how we do that in a second, but you all should have defined your benefit statement. All these simple 30-second commercial, elevator pitch, whatever you want to call it. Then your benefit statement. Can you put what you then from there, everything that you should be able to, you should communicate with a prospect should be able to fit on one sheet of paper.
Why one sheet?
Because I think it's going to be less is more. You know, you've got a certain amount of time. You're just trying to pique their interest. You're not going to close them. There may be those times when you close them on the same day you get in there.
Right.
But typically you're building the relationship.
Right.
And by building the relationship, and we talked about this earlier, you're respecting their time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the scope of the appointment. That's the upfront contract, whatever you want to call it. So okay, I'm not going to get overwhelmed with details from this guy or gal today.
Uh-huh.
He's just giving me the broad strokes of what we do. And remember what we're trying to do. We're trying to live to play another day. Yeah. Okay. So I claim to them after the presentation is done in our little 15, 20 half-hour coffee meeting, I say, I think that we can help you.
Yes.
My suggestion would be that I'm going to send you some materials. I'd like to send you some samples. And, you know, if it's, well, for you guys, it would be samples and whatnot. If it's software, it's going to be a demo or something like that. And let's just get to the next step because we want to continue the relationship.
Yes.
We want to continue to show you the hospitality as we do in the bar business to move it along, to stay in the game. And so now that you know who the people are, that the people that can buy what you sell, you started to list them. Where are you going to get more? Where does the list come from? Well, 3 groups: people you know, people you meet, and the people you buy. So the people you know are going to be your friends, your family, your business associates, right? So the people that are connected to you.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want them to know? Well, they could be a potential prospect, but but at least you should let them know what you're doing.
Sure.
And probably in your guys' world, I don't know to what I told you, mentioned something about a big construction company bidding on a $70 million project. But who on God's green earth doesn't need a contract?
Right.
Some way, shape, or form. It's just, is it going to be you?
Yep.
So now also then there's the group you meet,
Yep.
right? The group you meet are the people you meet at a chamber event.
Sure.
You belong to Rotary. You go to cocktail parties.
Yep.
You sit at a counter for breakfast. I'd say never sit at the same counter. Try to move it around, right? Those type of simple things. Yeah, and you have your elevator pitch together and all that.
Just real simply, Neil, just so everyone understands, what is an elevator pitch?
Well, it's getting your message down to a point where, again, back to the less is more, that if you had to if you were in an elevator with somebody and it was a 30-second ride up, they get an idea of what you do.
Yep.
So it's also in the Sandler sales parlance, it's called the 30-second commercial.
Yep. No, great.
So in there you would have your benefit, what do you do? And this is what this is how we help.
That's great.
Then you've got the group you buy.
What does that mean?
That's the list service, right? You've defined what you
I see. Yep.
Yeah. They're not your lowest hanging fruit. They're not as much fun to deal with. Typically, if you're in the group the group you buy, and all the group and the group you meet, there's some relationship.
Yes.
There, right. Obviously, you know the people in the group but the group you meet, well, guess what? You just met them.
Yep.
Now, structured from there, I would have structured campaigns, right, to follow up on each. Now, for the people that probably won't be as robust than the people that you meet. But your people should know what you do, because they could be a referral source.
Yes.
And they may or may not be able to use your services. And in your world, I mean, like I said earlier, who doesn't need a contractor at some point in time in their lives? But the people that you meet, just because you had a cocktail with them, you gave me a 30-second commercial and they were interested, don't be deluded to thinking that they're sitting by the phone waiting for your call, because they're not. Right. Hey, Eric was a good guy. Yeah, I remember him. Yeah, I think I put his name down or whatever. But but you have to systematically get them in queue.
Yep.
And we believe wholeheartedly in the conventional wisdom that 7 significant touches is what you need in order to get somebody's attention. And I say significant, I don't mean 7 voicemails or 7 emails.
Yeah.
You got to change it up. You got to do something different.
Okay, let's hold on a second then. Let's talk about that a little bit more then. So 7 significant touches just to get someone's attention. I've heard that sometimes before someone buys. Are you thinking mainly in terms of developing a relationship?
Yes. So if our goal is to get that coffee meeting, the cocktail, 15 to half hour intro gig, that's what we're looking for. So we could take, that's what I'm looking for on that. Now, again, you get that with, the blind squirrel finds the acorn, right? All of a sudden you hit somebody at the right spot. I can't believe you just called me because I'm looking for that stuff, whatever that may be.
Yep. Let's talk about this then, Neil. Give me some examples of what defines a significant touch, and then give me some insights into how often those touches should be occurring. And the reason I ask that is because sometimes salespeople, they stumble because they don't want to be a hassle to people, and so they don't necessarily keep in touch enough. So give us some insights there, please. Hey, this is Eric. Thank you for listening to this interview with Neil. I'm enjoying it a lot. Just a quick plug for my book, Construction Genius: Effective, Hands-On, Practical, Simple, No BS, Leadership, Strategy, Sales, and Marketing Advice for Construction Companies. This interview is all about sales, and in Construction Genius, you'll get 2 chapters of the book that are specifically focused on selling and on marketing. So you want to check that out. That's chapter 11 and chapter 12 in the book. So go to Amazon, purchase the book, purchase it for everyone in your company. If you buy 10 or more copies, reach out to me via email, eric@constructiongenius.com. Say, Eric, I bought 10 copies. And what I'll do is come into your office and we will, via Zoom, I'll come to your office via Zoom, and we'll actually do a 1-hour Q&A session and bonus leadership training session that is from the book. And so you can bring in your leadership team. We'll have a tremendous time. And the book is $19 $1.99 on Amazon. So spend a couple of $100, get 10 copies, and you will get a 1-hour session with me, for which I would normally charge $2,500. So that's a killer deal. So check that out. Get the book. I know you'll love it. And now let's get back to the conversation with Neil.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, put it in that fashion, because the average salesperson doesn't go past the third touch.
Interesting.
You might say it's kindness. I might say it's laziness. I might say it's not staying with the program.
Yep.
So, I mean, and it doesn't, it all has to be interconnected in my view. So your elevator pitch, your 30-second commercial should have that message should come through in, if let's say they gave you their business card, they've invited you to call them and email them. So I'm not opposed to a digital or certainly voice, but I think you got to use both. But it should be connected, so it should be thematic. And then
what do you mean it should be thematic? What does that mean?
Well, it should work back to your 30-second commercial.
I see. Okay, so every touch should come from the core of what it is that you're doing for your potential client.
Yeah, your benefit statement, whatever that may be.
Excellent.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we're going to intermingle that. But then you get serious on, you hope that they answer your email and your, but if they, and then a voicemail. So it's okay to leave voicemail. It's just, I don't think relying on digital and voice exclusively is the best use of your time.
Okay.
The third touch I would suggest is something lumpy.
Okay.
These envelopes get opened.
Yes.
Okay. Send them. This is media mail. I'm sending my books out in this fashion. Yep. $3.92.
Right.
So now you have to decide what's an initial engagement by working with whomever you're approaching. What is that going to be worth? So you can work back as to how much your campaign is going to cost you.
Right.
So you send that, and then you would follow up with yet another email.
Yep.
That again is, hey, I just sent you this piece, yada, yada, yada. Now you could get real creative with what goes in there. I suggest, because yes, I'm in the swag business, that you should have some sort of promotional item in there, because guess what? The research shows that everybody loves the swag, number one. That's just like, that's anecdotal evidence.
Right. So by swag, you mean what?
Anything with a corporate logo on it.
Okay.
So put your logo on something. Go to 4imprint.com and buy all the pens. Or if they're bigger companies, they can come and see us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But if they're going to go get 500 pens, they're better served going somewhere else. So now it gets opened. And just so you know, as another thing where we forget about things because we get so, with 24/7 media and everybody's chasing AI and the new iPhone and this, that, and the other thing. Okay, everybody listen to this. Direct mail, it's up in 2023.
Mm-hmm. And by direct mail, you mean physical mail.
Physical mail.
Yeah.
Old school snail mail.
Yep.
And it all comes with tracking. I know they're much maligned, but I will tell you their tracking services and whatnot are as good as UPS and
So you're talking about the postal service?
Postal service. Yes, indeed. So now you've got, with that tracking service, always make sure you get an email. You get an email receipt, because the tracking is right on there. You click right from there and you can see has been delivered.
Yep. Now
you might well guess, after all your years in sales, what would you like? What do you think we should do now? How about a follow-up?
Mm-hmm.
Did you receive I do it with my book. Hey, just want to make sure you got my book. If you had, and let me know. I'm really interested in your thoughts and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So I've just followed up. So now that's another touch. So now you're at 4. Now I would send another physical piece. Now this is where, again, what that is up to the person that's doing it, right? They have to determine, how badly do I want this business? All right. And how badly do I want to have that first meeting and go after this? Now they, as contractors, they may not be looking. We don't look for, as I said earlier, we don't look for 500 piece pen order. We're looking for Fortune 500 companies, or companies with a lot of employees, or that do a lot of promotional work that we can help.
Absolutely. So it's critical that you've rightly targeted the people that you're going after. Goes
back to point 1, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Always starts at the beginning. Yep. So I would do yet another, and this is where you can have some fun. The internet is wide open. Google something about their industry. Find something that you believe might be of interest to that particular prospect, about the business, about something, whatever.
Yep.
Have one of these things with you. That's a
A
highlighter.
highlighter.
Highlight a passage that you believe would be germane to that person. Write a little note on it. Write a personal note. Get yourself some of these babies,
Oh yeah.
Post-it notes with your logo on it,
Interesting.
and put it right on the article.
Yeah.
Thought of you when I saw this. Interested in your thoughts. Let's get on a Zoom. Whatever you want to do. Let's have coffee. Whatever. So we're still zeroing back into that next thing, that next step.
Yes.
So, and then, so we do here. So now there's another follow up to that. Cause again, you've got your tracking for USPS, and that, by the way, is less than $1.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy these things at 500 a whack, somewhere less than $1, right? You've got a highlighter. It's free. Your ink is coming off your printer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like there's a huge cost to this. Just, it's about doing it.
Yes.
And it's not always about the cards, the letters, and the gifts. It's about doing it. Right? It's about making sure that you're following the process.
So it's being disciplined in that process and consistent.
Exactly. And I would see, so I'll finish up with the last touch. The last touch that we have is a pretty grandiose touch. This is where we say we're in, or it's decision time, because it's an expensive piece we send. And it's got in our box, it's a box dimensionally. So that's going to cost us, if we go USPS, certainly $10 or so.
Sure.
The goods inside are probably $20, $30, $40, something like that. And it's all sorts of promotional items with all of our logo on them. And it would be things like this, because we're prescribing that because when we take them through, so the goal would be is that I walk in with that kit, right? That's part of our meeting or the next meeting if we move along, right? So if we get more time, if he says we have an hour, then I can take him through that box and tell him what the significance is of a highlighter, or what the significance is of this. And as I just told, the significance is just what I told you, right? So that box it also serves as our promo kit. So we just send that out. So in terms of timing, we subscribe to the tenacity.
What's that?
It's versus persistence. Persistence sounds like pest for a reason. Tenacity means you just did what I described to do. You broke out the highlighter. You grabbed an article. You know the guy's a Boston Red Sox fan, whatever that may be. He loves Algonquin, Maine, right? Or San Diego down your way, right? Whatever that may be. And we send them something that we heard, we saw their LinkedIn profile. They're a Michigan grad. Who's crazier than Michigan grads? I mean, they love this, right? So send them something. Or just you saw that Michigan beat Michigan State. Beautiful. Whew, what a great day.
Right.
Hope you enjoyed it, right? So we're just trying to, and I would suggest that a 2-week time frame is stuff that was rarely where we the frequency we use.
So each touch over a 2-week time frame. Yeah. Let me ask you this. Where does cold calling come in? Just going right into the office. Like I'm driving around and I drive by a guy's office and I'm like, I'm just going to walk in and see if he's around.
We'll have something there, have something with you, because this was also a very a specialty of mine. My first 2 jobs, I was in wholesale food distribution. So I was in and out of every kitchen in Boston. I'd make 20 physical calls before 10 o'clock on a Monday morning.
That's beautiful.
And you have to go see chefs. I don't know what the equivalent is in the construction business.
It would be like the superintendent on a job site.
Wants nothing to do with it. Oh, and if you're the new guy, even less. Oh, yeah, you know this? Oh, yeah. Well, you're going to be gone in 2 weeks. So you have to show it's just now you're killing them with kindness. Hey, listen, I just got some information on what our lumber prices are, what the commodity prices are. I'd just like to drop them off, maybe stop by every once in a while, leave them with something, have those promotional items ready, and just leave them behind. You're probably not going to get to them. You're probably going to be with his admin or whatever that may be, or her, I should say, and leave something behind, and then you start your creativity, get his address, start sending them stuff, so you want to wear him down. You want to say that, what, this guy's not going away or gal's not going away. He's serious about this, because what's the last thing somebody wants to do? Start a relationship and a month later, they're gone. The rep's gone, sales guy, because they just didn't make it. They didn't make it because they were probably more than likely set up for failure. And they didn't have a process.
It's interesting. So we've talked about the importance of having a process and then executing that process. And so it leads me to the question then, can anyone be a salesperson?
I believe so. I think that some people that may not have. So have you ever heard of Howard Gardner?
I haven't, no.
So Howard Gardner wrote a book called The Frames of Mind.
Mm-hmm.
In The Frames of Mind, he speaks about the 7 types of intelligence.
Mm.
Now, Neil here was not classically academic
Sure.
intelligent. Middle of the road, my book is for people that were just that. I always joke that my combined SAT scores and my class rank had one thing in common. They were both in the triple digits, right?
It's beautiful.
Just not stellar,
right.
but not awful. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like it wasn't like I was bottom of the class or I didn't at least try or I didn't show
Yeah.
up. But anyways, but I did discover, and of course I read the book many years later because I didn't even know it existed, that what I had was interpersonal intelligence and intrapersonal intelligence. So if somebody is academically intelligent, engineering background, logic based, they would probably have to work on those skills. And I would suggest things like a Toastmasters. I'm involved with Toastmasters now. And those are the types of ways that there's a ton of people in our group. We probably have 25 or 30 members in our little chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And I would suggest there's a few of us that have been in sales, a few of us that want to sharpen our skills. But most of them are like engineers trying to get out of their engineering mindset.
Yes.
And get into more interpersonal, not just stuck on the computer coding or whatever that may be. They want to be leaders. They want to be out front. So I think that if they're willing to put in they certainly have the knowledge. They might have a little bit of problem with that's where the 2 ears, 1 mouth is going to come in. Really, it's going to be a challenge because they know so much. They want to jump in. Let me tell you everything I know about it. So if they can hold that back and really become great listeners, I think anybody can.
If I'm new in sales, let's say I've brought on, in the context of my listeners, let's say you've just hired a business development person. Maybe they're relatively new to the industry. They're relatively young. What do I need to do in the first 90 days to set up a business development person for success?
Well, the aforementioned process, right? And I'm partial to positive activity for obvious reasons. And the 90-day window fits right in my wheelhouse. Because what I say is the IVITIs, right? I talked about positivity, to creativity, to productivity. You do those steps every day for 90 days. Activity begets activity. So you get on a roll, you start feeling good. If the person, I don't know, so who hires the BD person, the superintendent?
No, it would typically be someone, in the sales side of the company, maybe the head of business development or something like that.
Okay, so they bring in, they would have to buy into that as well. And they'd have to reinforce it, that you keep score. How many of these did you do today? What after hours events are you going to this week, this month? Right?
Yes.
Tell me about your what do you think your 30-second commercial
Yes.
is? Let's work on that together. What are you going to tell people when you meet them elsewhere? Because you're not going to just sit there and, get people on phones. I mean, it just does not happen anymore. And if you catch somebody, I don't know about you, but somebody calls me on my cell phone, I don't know, I'm not happy.
Yeah, totally. Can we just go step by step through what a 30-second commercial should have in it, please?
Quick little introduction, a little bit about what you do, and a little bit about the benefit statement.
Okay.
How you
and what is a benefit? What is a benefit statement?
So I'm Neil Rogers.
Yep.
I work in the promotional products industry, promotional marketing, the corporate logo stuff. Oh, yeah. So what we do is we help people get their brand out there to drive awareness and business to them. That's what we do.
Excellent.
We help you, or we throw in sometimes, depending upon you have to be smooth with it and you have to massage it to the right person. If it's a salesperson or a business development person, we help you get attention. You need to get attention.
We help you get attention. Yeah, it's interesting because I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and then every company, and depending on the person that you talk to, they're going to have an elevator pitch that they might customize. And so I've been working on this particular one. Someone asked me, Eric, what exactly do you do? And I tell them, when a project manager gets promoted into a project executive role and they have to make the shift from building projects to building teams of people, that's one of the biggest challenges they'll ever face in their career. And I help them make that shift. It's interesting. And what I found interesting, and this is something I would say to people, anyone listening here, is that phrase, the shift, I got that from an interview that I did with a construction company CEO. And he literally said those words to me. I asked him, what's the biggest challenge that you find leaders have? And he said to me, what I had just said is my elevator pitch. So I took the words of my clients and I turned that into an elevator pitch because it meets the particular pain point or the particular issue that they're looking to solve by using my services.
There are no new ideas, right?
Right.
We just pick them up off the ground. We call it over here, we call it R&D. You know what
does that mean?
Rip off and duplicate.
I call it standing on the shoulders of giants.
If you don't think I'm not going to take a little bit of what you said and weave it into something that I'm going to use, you're crazy.
No, it's
going to happen.
It's funny because I was thinking the same thing, Neil, is that, I haven't done lumpy mail in a while. And I can remember the last time I did some a postcard campaign, I landed one of the largest GCs in the country as a result of a postcard campaign. This guy didn't know me from Adam, but they became my client. And so I'm actually encouraged, Neil, in the new year to be doing some lumpy mail. I appreciate that particular insight.
I want to hear about it. Let me know.
That's great.
You want to do a flyby or whatnot? What are you trying to do? Happy to chat.
No, that's great. So tell us a little more about yourself, how people can get in touch with you, the kinds of things that you do to help people excel in sales.
Well, right now, in terms of how this positive activity program, I know I keep circling back to this, but I can't, again, I'd like to make it harder for everybody, but it's not. And this is just like, we coach you through that, take you through it. We can create the products for you, all those things and whatnot. Quick little example. There was a consulting company. It was Hitachi Consulting, and got in there. He wanted to do a campaign. So they were, this is like, they're not McKesson, they're not Deloitte & Touche, but they're probably, $100 million consulting firm, that type of thing. I don't know what they are now. I don't even know if they exist. But he said, I'd like to do a campaign. What I'm going to do is with 10 of our business development people that were phone-based, I'm going to have them give me their top 10 hard to get into. So we get 100 people we're going after. Now, their opening silo was $250,000. You sign up, it's $250 to start. They've got some wiggle room. They're going to do an attempt on this. But we didn't get fancy. We did not. I think I told you earlier, it's not about the cards, the letters, and gifts. It's about doing it. So we did a 7-touch campaign, thematic, no fancy anything. And they got 10 appointments.
Yeah.
Now, how many? I can't remember. I don't know if they closed any. That was the end of it right there. That's all as far as I got. But I believe they got 10 appointments, in-person appointments. That's 10% return on a $10,000 investment. And oh, by the way, 5 of that was mail. I didn't even make it, and I don't make any money on mail.
Yep. How can people get in touch with you?
So you can go to positiveactivity.net, and that's where you can get a hold of the book. It's also where we'll be putting our speaking bio up there and all that. So that'll get a little bit more built out over the next little bit. And we've decided to brand that part of our company, Positive Activity, and instead of pushing the book exclusively.
And what book are you referring to, by the way?
It is Bar Tips. Everything I needed to know in sales, I learned behind the bar.
Right.
And it's practical advice from your bartender. Simple things, doing every day that could help propel your business. And that's what's propelled mine. And oh, by the way, if they want to email me, it's Neil, Neil, at ROG, M as in Mary, ARK.net. Neil at rajmark.net.
That's great. And so you wrote the book Bar Tips. Have you been a bartender?
I was a bartender for 10 years in and around the Boston and Cape Cod area.
Interesting.
And it's G-rated, so don't worry about it. None of the 4 o'clock stories.
Yeah. What's the biggest thing that you learned about people during your time as a bartender?
Whoa, there's a lot there. I would suggest, I think what we got out of there and what I later came to find out is a very important thing is, and it was kind of innate to me in there, and when I was tending bar, is when something goes wrong, take ownership of it, right? So the story that goes with that is my buddy Dennis Mayer was a woman came up to the bar and she says, I'd like a vodka martini, very dry, straight up. Okay. Dennis, a veteran of at least 10, maybe 15 years at the time, poured a vodka martini like he pours every vodka martini dry. Put it down in front of her. She took a sip of it, looks at him and goes, not dry enough. Okay. Comes over to me. He says, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've never put a drop of vermouth in a martini. Every martini is the same.
Right.
Dry. Just vodka or just gin. What does he do? He's getting a beef with her? Argue with her? How about you just remake it? But you remake it right in front of her. Oh, yeah, this is how we make these. Oh, yeah, sure. Absolutely. Let me help you out. Let me do that. Pour the drink, put it in front of her, takes a sip of it. Yeah, much better. Same drink.
Interesting.
But do you want to get in the beef? Do you want to keep a client? Do you want to do whatever? So it goes from the premise that I do believe in the old adage that the customer is always right. I also believe that the customer can't be unreasonable.
Right.
If she did it again after that, that would be unreasonable, right? But he avoided any confrontation by just taking ownership of it and going, yeah, that's my fault. Let me do it again for you.
That's great. Well, Neil, I really appreciate your time, your insights into that seven touch campaign and how to get your mind right, your inner game right before you get out into your sales day. Those are absolutely essential. And I appreciate you joining us here today on Construction Genius.
Eric, it's been great. Love the construction business.
Right on. Thank you. Hey, this is Eric. Thank you for listening to my interview with Neil today. Feel free to check out his book that he's written, Bar Tips, Everything I Learned in Sales, I Learned Behind the Bar. That's on Amazon, and we'll link to that in the show notes. And feel free to reach out to him on his website as well. All links in the show notes. Feel free to share this interview with other people that you think would benefit from listening to it. And of course, go out to where you get your podcasts and give Construction Genius a rating and a review. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.